to become a therapist. We all need to have the skills to be able to listen to one another and understand what's happening from a psychology perspective in each other's minds. I'm a software engineer. I'm a computer geek. I know how to do programming. I can interact with computers. They make sense. They don't bleed. You can take them apart. It was so easy. Human behavior is not science. Right? But we, as Muslims, need to be there for each other. And that is the most important thing, and I can't stress this enough. Because, especially males, guys, I'm talking to us. All of our therapists are females right now. We're begging to try to find Muslim male therapists. They're not there. They're all in engineering and law and medicine and all those other fun money-making professions. MashaAllah, which is good. But we need this to become a focus. Because this is the issues that are going to face our community. A variety of reasons. There's so much to unpack. There's so much to talk about. We don't even know where to start. But NASEEHA, what we offer is an anonymous 24 hours a day, 7 days a week helpline. There are 3 ways to get in touch with somebody at NASEEHA. I'm going to give you guys an example. In 2020, the call duration went on average from 45 minutes down to 20 minutes. Can anybody think of why that was the case? What happened in 2020? COVID, okay? So, why would the call duration go from 45 minutes to 20 minutes?
Calls were going through the roof.
Calls were going through the roof. No doubt about that. But that was not the factor. We never hang up. We never say, hey, sorry, we're done.
People were together.
So why did the call duration go down?
People were together?
Where was everybody?
Home.
How much privacy did they have? The number of times where it was, hey, someone's coming, quick, bye. So overnight, we introduced texting to the same phone number, 1-866-NASEEHA. You can text it, and you can get a hold of a counselor. The same counselor that you would get on the phone. So you can text, you can call, and now we've introduced a live chat feature. There's several websites now. Masjids, organizations all over the country now are implementing our live chat feature, and you can talk to a counselor right away. It's anonymous. It's free of charge. Does anybody know Mass here, right? Mass, New York. They have a social services division. They have a mental health clinic. Brooklyn and Staten Island. If you go to either of their websites, their mental health website, right now you can speak to somebody at NASEEHA. We're not limited. There's no charge. We're trying to, we need to get the work done. Our communities are unfortunately suffering. And this is not the time to say, oh, listen, I only do that. These other guys don't. We work closely. Has anybody heard of the FITYA Center?
Yes.
We work very closely with them. To the point where when we were in Canada, we'd refer to them here, they were in Chicago, right? We'd say, go to FITYA Center, they offer talk therapy. We didn't offer talk therapy at the time, right? So we referred to them so much, they opened up an office in Toronto. So then I said, all right, fine, I'm going to open up an office in Chicago. So that's where we are in NASEEHA, right? So we will work with anybody. Because the work has to get done. Who cares who does the work, yeah? So, ultimately, the kinds of things that we're dealing with, they're horrific. The stuff that makes the news is the tip of the iceberg. I mean, we saw it recently, obviously, with some of the stories of some of the Muslim leaders that, were part of some organizations and, how they've been accused of doing some horrific things. That's the tip of the iceberg. That's something we read regularly. Weekly, that's a story that I read on our helpline. Children being abused, that happens all the time. In our community, domestic abuse, it's happening all the time. Addictions, alcohol, drug addiction, substance abuse, pornography, these are rampant. 10% of the calls that we get are about addiction. And out of those 10%, 45% are about pornography. And the kinds of stories? Oh, it's probably just guys in college, right? Girls as young as 8 years old.
No.
I've read it. I'm not here to depress anybody. I'm here to illustrate that our community, there's no more of this, oh, that doesn't happen in our community. That's for others. It's happening to us. And we need to find a solution and be part of that solution. And all of us can be part of that solution. Part of that is to learn, like I said, you don't have to become a therapist, but you need to understand human growth. Anybody know what age a human brain is basically 90% developed? You know what age that happens at? Anybody? Yeah, go ahead. 25? Anybody else? Sorry, I'm hearing stuff. See, they need a mic, I'm telling you. I think they have the right answer. I'm going to tell you that right now. I don't even need to, I can hear it, but. Sorry, can you say it a little louder? 25 or 30? In any person, in any human being, the brain is about 90% developed by the age 7.
I was about to say that. 8.
Think about that.
Mm.
These are things we need to know because those first 7 years are the single most important years of any human being's life. The first 7. I learned that just recently, right? Through my classes. The next 7 are the formative years. So all your cognitive, your pathways in your brain are being developed in the first 7, but they are being formed in the next 7. Does anybody know who talked about this as a philosophy for raising children? Sorry? Also, talk about it. 777, right? Love them for the first 7. Discipline them for the next 7. Be their friend for the next 7. It makes sense, right? But these are things we all need to know, so that when we're talking to our 7-year-old, or our 5-year-old, or our 4-year-old, we're understanding, listen, this is important. It's more important for them at 5, how old are you?
16.
Than it is at 16. Right? What he needs is far different than what that 4 or 5-year-old needs. Right? We need to learn these things. These are important things to know and learn so that we know how to interact with one another and how we can counsel one another. Our deen is what? Adinun NASEEHA. Right? Our faith is based on being able to counsel. You know, on the flight this morning, I flew this morning, I was listening to a book called The Sustenance of the Soul. Does anybody know who wrote this book? Does anybody know what CBT is?
Yeah.
Cognitive behavioral therapy. Who is the founder of this idea? Anybody know? Pardon me? It's Sigmund Freud. I know everyone likes to give him credit for everything. It was not Sigmund Freud. In North America, and I don't know his name, it's like Eric Reed, I think is his name, in the 60s. Okay?
Eric
The truth of it all, I want everybody to get their phones out. Everybody's already on their phone. I want you to look up a name. Ready? Abu Zaid al-Balkhi. B-A-L-K-H-I. Abu Zaid al-Balkhi.
Bulk.
He's an 8th century Muslim polymath who wrote this book called The Sustenance of the Soul. In it, he describes cognitive behavioral therapy. The difference is he adds in this entire element of the soul, being a foundational factor in how you treat an individual. Today we talk about human-centered or humanistic-centered therapy. He was talking about that then. He said we need not treat people that are having a mental illness as patients. We need to treat them as normal human beings who are experiencing something. He talked about anger being a disease of the soul. And that you just need to reframe or have a cognitive shift or a reshaping in order to fix anger. He said, never be alone. The only context in which people should be alone, there's only 3. 1, rulers. Rulers or leaders should be alone to reflect on what they're doing and what the impact of what they're doing is. Number 2 are authors. Those that need quiet and need to be able to write are the people that should be alone. And number 3 is people, individuals that are engaged in the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who needed to be alone. If you intend to be alone otherwise, he said that those were people that were ill. They were mentally ill. So these are things that we need to consider. Right? And he said that in the Arab tradition, at least in their tradition, they said that anybody who wished to be ill, what did he say? He said the ones who wished to be ill were shaitans. Or like the ones that wanted to be alone. And because shaitan would be your companion. These are things we need to implement. Like this loneliness, this, disposable relationships that we have, it's coming out of this, right? We need to re-own all of this. This is ours. We're the ones that developed this, and we're having others tell us that it's not ours. Sigmund Freud, the answer that we get, does anybody know when Sigmund Freud was alive? When was he alive? Late 19th century, early 20th century. This we're talking like 120 years ago. All of my classes that I'm taking right now, every theorist came after him. Some of them were as late as the 80s. Like, this guy might still be alive today. You're telling me that's what I'm learning about? Like, what happened to ancient Chinese medicine? What happened to Latin American medicine? What happened to our Arab or Muslim or South Asian medicine? We've been treating this stuff forever. And it's being ignored and it's being whitewashed. It's being colonized. There's a book called The Colonization of Therapy. Somebody just mentioned it to me recently. And I got to read this book. But we need to own this, because if this is the frame, this is the framework that our Muslims are going to therapy for, what are we getting back as a product? You get it? When we, and I'm talking to the guys here, when we become therapists, the women, mashallah, they're becoming therapists. They're already therapists. They've been thinking about it for decades. But for us as guys, men, we need to be there for other guys. We need to be there for our community. Abu Zayd al-Balkhi has, I don't know, I think it said like 50 or 60 books on geography. This is his, but he was also a doctor. He was a Hafiz al-Quran. He was a faqih. Like, this didn't live, this is our tradition. These are our leaders. These are our heroes. This is what they were. And no one's recognizing them. And they get footnotes sometimes in some textbooks. You know? This book was an amazing listen. I mean, and it wasn't long. That's the best part. It wasn't long at all. But we should take this. Imam al-Ghazali, rahimahullah, he was considered to be one of the greatest philosophers of all time. We're suffering from a lot of issues, right? And so I want to make this into a discussion. I'm sorry, I know I've been kind of lecturing, but I'm passionate about this. Like I said, I'm a software engineer overall, but I lasted only 4 or 5 months. When I started reading the stuff that we're dealing with, I could log in right now, and I could tell you the latest issues right now that are happening. So here we go. Less than an hour ago, Minneapolis, somebody called in, they just wanted to vent. Texas, misunderstanding with a friend. 53-year-old man from Kitchener, Ontario, war-induced trauma and life struggles. Connecticut, issue with older sister. Toronto male, pornography addiction. Toronto male, OCD question about wudu. Anonymous chat, unsure about marriage. Work stress. Relationship trauma from Missouri. OCD, struggle with relationship. Guilt and trauma. Self-esteem issues. Financial crisis, facing eviction. Female, struggling in relationship. Regret and abusive ex. Issues with a marriage suitor. Overwhelmed about restrictions in Islam. Angry and hopeless about a delayed marriage. Edmonton, alcohol abuse. Burnout, loneliness. This is so resentment towards American Muslim women. Female, dealing with an ADHD diagnosis. It's non-stop. That's just today. We haven't gone to another day yet. That's just today. So, if this is what we're dealing with, how are we going to address it, is the question, right? So, my hope today is that this group, our group, is something like a group that can lead to change. that we can instill that change, that we can be the beacons or the leaders that can start talking to each other, to start talking to our communities, to say, we need to be there for each other. Walking up to somebody and saying, how are you doing? You know one of the busiest days we have? Guess what one of the busiest days for calls is at NASEEHA?
Out of the weekdays?
No, in the year.
For Muslims or for general?
For Muslim, this is a Muslim helpline, but yeah, that's a good point. We get a lot of non-Muslim calls. We get a ton of non-Muslim calls. And we get calls from converts, we get calls from non-Muslims, Muslims, you name it. We get calls from all over. But I'm saying just one of the busiest days of the year in terms of just calls coming in.
Eid day?
New Year's, sorry?
Eid?
First of Ramadan?
First of Ramadan's a good one. Eid.
Eid?
Eid is correct. Eid is one of the busiest days of the year because, can you guys hear me? Without the mic?
Well, that's with the mic, actually.
Sisters, can you guys hear me with the mic or without the mic?
It's easier for that.
It's easier like this? Okay, good. I just, because I can't hear that, that's the thing. Eid is one of the busiest days of the year. People are talking about loneliness, so what do you think we say? What do you think we say when somebody says, hey, I'm feeling lonely on Eid? What do you think we say?
Come have dinner with
We're being social, right? Connecting with people. We say, well, go to the masjid. All right?
There's no one in the masjid.
No, there is. There are people in the masjid. Sure.
Even the Zohar is very weak.
Perhaps it is, right? But a lot of times what they're saying is, I just came from the masjid.
Oh.
Well, what happened? He said, no one came to say Eid Mubarak to me. They hugged and kissed all their friends. They hugged and kissed all their friends. And I was just standing there. I tested this theory. As came to truth. I went to a masjid for Eid that I do not normally go to. I even knew a few people there, but not a lot. I said, I'm going to stand here in the middle of a gym with close to 4,000 people. Wow. Let's go. I did get some interaction. And most of the interaction, almost all of it, not one person said Eid Mubarak to me that I didn't know, personally. Number two, the interaction was it's funny, but it's sad. The interaction was, brother, can you please get out of the way? I'd like to get a samosa. It's funny, but it's sad, because that happened. And I believe it. I believe the people that are calling. The masjids are transactional. The relationship is transactional. People go for a salah, they leave, they don't talk to anybody when they're there. They're there for a janazah, they leave, they don't talk to anybody. They're there for a nikah and they're out. It's transactional now. And there's no longer this idea of a community or making these connections. In Chicago, how many of you guys have heard of Qalam? Have you guys heard of Qalam Institute? Does anybody know who Qadi Noman is? Qadi Noman? He's originally from Milwaukee. When I moved to Chicago, he had just become the imam of a masjid there. He also started an organization there called Oasis. Has anybody heard of Oasis? Yeah? Oasis was this third space. Did you guys know what a third space is? Right? This space is kind of outside of a masjid. So this is kind of like a third space. It's not officially a masjid, right? But it's a space where Muslims are going to come and hang out. He started an organization called Oasis. It's a third space. He started, when I moved there 2 years ago, when there was about 30 people that would come on a Thursday night. All of them are under 30, between 20 and 30. right? In terms of age. This year, just at the end of 2024, they are leasing a 6,000 square foot facility because they were up over 600 people in that same space. These are all people who are not connected to the masjid at all. Between 20 and 30, professionals, young Muslims, completely disconnected from the masjid. Disenfranchised from the masjid. That's Oasis. We haven't talked about Mosaic, which is another one that has now popped up. We are not talking about Web Foundation. This is the issue, is because the masjids aren't being that space. But these are the things that no one's talking about, because those are the people that are calling us. How many of you had heard of NASEEHA before today? Right? The people that are calling us are people that are seeking us out. Because for the vast majority of people here, they haven't heard of NASEEHA in some formal way, like a presentation or anything like this. They might have heard of us at a MassCon or maybe something like that, but the vast majority of people are seeking us out. And so, where's the disconnect? There's a disconnect here somewhere. I don't know what it is. Part of it I do. And when was the last time you heard on the minbar at Jummah? They're talking about, hey, let's talk about mental health. Let's talk about being okay. Let's talk about a pornography addiction, alcohol addiction. Let's talk about, domestic abuse. Let's talk about these things. I never heard it. Have you? No? Sisters, have you guys ever heard that?
No.
Okay. Yeah, maybe it was. Look, you have 52 Jummahs in a year. Maybe you're going to hear it once, twice. But it's not part of the everyday. It's not part of like a flow of normal conversation that we're having anymore. And that's what we want to do with NASEEHA. We want to embed these conversations to be part of the everyday. You want to talk about zakat? Let's talk about zakat. Let's talk about mental health too. Yeah? So, I'd love to hear thoughts, just questions. I want to have a discussion with everybody because speeches don't go far, right? What do you guys think we can do as a community, as communities, to try to help our communities? What are the things that we can do? I mean, I've illustrated the problem. That was, this is just a glimpse into what the problem is. But how do we do it?
Well, one, know what your kids are saying and what they're seeing, and what they're doing.
That's a good point. Know what the kids are seeing and saying. Do you think your parents know everything that you're seeing and saying? Do you think they ever will? The answer is no. If I want to hide something, I'm going to hide it.
Yeah,
Right?
it's impossible.
It's important to make the best effort. There's no doubt about that. It's so slippery though. You squeeze it, it's going to slip right out. You keep it too loose, it's going to fall right through. Alright?
I think having spaces like Qalam and Oasis and FITYA is actually one of that we are trying to develop
Really?
towards that.
Yeah, absolutely. I was actually hanging out with, you guys know who Sheikh Mikhail Smith is?
Yeah.
I was with him last night, he was in Chicago.
Oh, okay.
He's becoming a therapist.
Oh, mashallah.
And so he's asking about NASEEHA and seeing if when he's doing his practicum, whether he can do it with us. And inshallah, we're going to be working with
very good.
We're going to be working with Qalam.
Most people get it going.
Yeah, we're going to. That's right. Yeah. They were doing a program yesterday with Miftah at the Mecca Center in Chicago. And so we were there. We're talking to the Miftah folks as well because they want to do something as well with NASEEHA about getting mental health to their students and embedding it within some of the courses.
How long does that, what kind of program is it? How long does it take
For therapy?
to become a therapist?
To become a therapist, and this is a great question, it takes as little as 2 years. And that first year would be classes, and the second year would be an internship or practicum is what it's called.
What are the like base requirements for that? Like, is there any prerequisites?
Typically, generally speaking, they're looking for you to have a bachelor's degree. Like I don't have a background in mental health, but I have a master's degree already in software engineering. So they looked at my grades and said, look, you know how to be a student, let's see what you can do with mental health. Now, one of the things is there's something called, there's a body called CACREP, C-A-C-R-E-P, CACREP. They're an accreditation body for therapy programs. Not every therapy program is accredited by them, but those that are recognized. So you're looking at Northwestern University, Columbia, you're looking at, all the major, big schools are accredited by them. So you can look for programs that are accredited, and for me, I was like, let me find the cheapest one. Because at the end of the day, you're accredited by them, it's all the same. Now you're just looking for a name. So I'm at this University of the Cumberlands in Kentucky. Big deal. I don't care. But inshallah, by in about a year and a half, I should have my LCP degree, the license, with a master's in clinical therapy. Inshallah.
Sure.
Okay. So, yeah, that's all.
Maybe as a community, we could help sponsor some people who we think, maybe eligible for that type of service.
Has anybody heard of a continuous charity that organization?
A continuous charity?
Yeah. So one of their folks is actually working for NASEEHA now.
Oh,
He's actually here in Long Island. He's helping us out.
what's his name?
Hamza Sheikh.
Hamza Sheikh.
You guys know Hamza?
Yeah.
So he's with both.
Well, he's the one who contacted me.
Yeah, right. Hamza, of course. He's still with the community. That's what he does. He's with the continuous charity, but he's also helping us out. I can see that. But I didn't know about it until I met him. And the concept of that school or that organization is phenomenal. And maybe that's how we partner together to sponsor students to go and get their degrees as therapists. That's a brilliant idea. What else? Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, I have a question.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you, if you could outline, what are the key components of active listening? We really want people to feel as if they are listening to them, as if their feeling is not being disregarded. What are some key components of what we should do?
Key components of active listening.
Key components of active listening?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is a great question. The reason why this is a great question is because I'm not great at it, right? This concept of active listening. You know who one of the best active listeners of all time was? This is an easy question. Go ahead. Everybody. The Prophet Muhammad. What did he do as an active listener? What was one of the key components of him being an active listener? What did he do when somebody called on him? He turned his entire body towards him. He said, oh, okay, go. And now, that focuses an individual. And now in terms of active listening, one of the things that we're taught in therapy is to summarize. So what you're hearing, you summarize back. And you say things like, if I heard you correctly, this is what you're talking about. And make sure you got this feedback. And you can practice in any conversation. The next time you're having a conversation with somebody, who's telling you something, you're like, let me just summarize that back to you. That's one of the key components of active listening. Then comes all the kind of nonverbal stuff, right? So that you're making eye contact, you're talking to the person, you're not speaking over the person, you're engaged. you're not droopy-eyed, you're not, you know, you're not about to fall asleep, you know? So there's some key components to active listening. The number one, though, that I would suggest that we can all practice starting today in any conversation that you're listening. Here's the thing. When a lot of people are talking, and you'll catch yourself doing this, I promise you will, because I do it to myself all the time. You're not listening, you're just waiting to talk. You get it? You're just waiting to talk. If we stop doing that a little bit, and we reflect back, and just reflect back to the person, whatever we're talking about, even if you're just going to say, let's practice doing this, that will help us develop that skill, like that, it's like muscle memory. We'll develop that skill of active listening and being present in that moment, yeah? Nobody was more present than the Prophet, alayhi salatu wasalam. There's an amazing quality of his, of being completely present and grounded at all times. Here, we gotta close our eyes, and we gotta feel our toes, and we gotta listen to all the sounds around us, and now we're grounded, right? We're present. He lived his life like that, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, at every moment. And he took his time. He went up to Jabal Nur. He went up to his Ghar Hira, and he took his time away to practice being alone and being quiet, right? We should do that too. How many days does it take to build a habit?
30 days?
30 is close. It's a little bit less than that.
It's like
Right.
21.
Did somebody say 21? Yeah, 21. 21 days. How many days are we away from Ramadan? Right now.
22?
Folks, we are 21 days away from Ramadan. You want to build a habit? Pick one. Pick some incremental habit, even if it's active listening, and develop it until Ramadan. And it'll become a habit. You can practice it every day. Right? So what else can we do to try to help each other out? How do we build up the capacity in our community, or in our communities, to help address this mental health issue? I mean, alhamdulillah, NASEEHA is doing its work. Qalam and their teachers are almost all therapists. Like, they're all becoming therapists, or they are therapists. What's that? Oh, they exist. Organizations like throughout our Project Taqwa in Chicago, they're trying to do stuff. Everyone's trying to do something to address this issue, but what are we going to do here in New York? I just wanted to...
Can I say something?
Absolutely. Go ahead.
So, earlier, you said that our community, the best day for our community is Eid, right? Everybody's happy, everybody's celebrating. We are there in the mosque for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and for our community, right?
Right.
And we don't say hello to our people on the right or left, and we don't greet them. Problem is, brother, I've been, like, of course, here for 30, 35 years, and I've seen all kinds of gatherings, the happy ones and the sad ones. Problem is that I see as a mother, we are very judgmental. And we're not moving our focus towards one goal. The one goal, Allah is one, Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, is one, our book is one. We need to have one goal, and we need to move towards that goal. How can we get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? So, and then if we're very close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we will definitely overcome with a lot of problems. When our young ones, they go to the mosque, and my son is sitting right next to you, and I always tell him this, that please do not listen to somebody who's trying to divide you. Do not listen to, not this kind, or we're not that kind, or we don't do this, and we don't do that, we do it differently. No. Go with excitement, meet and greet everybody, love everybody, and definitely listen to those who are trying to invite you towards one nation that is Ummah. Now, we are so judgmental towards the young ones that those who are, I'm from Pakistan, I was raised there. I've seen part of my Islamic society and culture. These people are from this society where they have a lot of obstacles. They have so much diversity. It's very hard to keep their identity and understand what is good for us. I understand we do good training, but they still go out, they go to schools, they go to work, they see a lot of the time, and they get confused. If some, like children, or like even like mature people, they do something wrong, we want to pass our judgment pretty fast, that this one drinks all the time, he's not in his touches. This one I've seen him always going around, doing X, Y, and Z. I think Islami Jamaat, this is a Jamaat from Pakistan, and I've always heard from my father, he talked about it, Islami Jamaat, that one of the reasons that they're good on dawah and they're successful is because they like to invite people with kindness and without judging and without taking any sort of decisions on how this person is and displaying their identities. People have anxiety. We always think that somebody's rude and they're not saying hello to us. People have anxiety of being in a crowd or being judged. The minute I went to Hamza Masjid, I did namaz, I did a couple of namazes. And I went to the community, like African community, and I go close to them, they literally couldn't believe that I'm hugging them and I'm asking them how their kids are, they exchange phone numbers. After that, of course, life happens and I got busy and I didn't get a chance to communicate with them. But if we have more, in our mosque, if that mosque, we use it as a community center, let people meet and greet. We do more interactions there for younger people and older. We invite everybody with the tattoos and with all the, whatever they're doing and wearing. I think we'll let them come closer to us. And when somebody will come close to us, they'll recognize that we're humble people and we do believe in loving and kindness and forgiving, forgetting everything. But right now, our own kids don't believe that we have the capacity to forgive and forget. They always think that my mom said to me, this is going to say this or my will become a true leader who is making. Thank you.
That was very well said, mashallah. There's a lot to unpack, based on that. Like the conversation, essentially, if you guys can hear it, and sister, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it boils down to staying away from those that are telling us, hey, we don't do this, or we do this, or we don't do that. Like, in other words, staying away from those that divide us. That we need to be a society or a community that is less judgmental of one another and more reflective of ourselves. That there is an example within the Islamic Jamaat, or the group that calls to dawah through love and compassion. And that it's a successful model because of the premise of love and compassion. And that if we implement that and learn that skill even, and we had this compassion, care for one another, that we would build and mend hearts. And that we need to become more exposed to other communities outside of just the insular kind of community that we're a part of. That if we go out and meet with other communities, have that compassion, that love, and we implement that we as a wider community can also start coming together and have love and compassion for one another. Did that accurately summarize that?
Yes, absolutely, sir.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, that's really. You know, I'll share a story. My in-laws live in Michigan. Okay. And one of the masjids there is one of the first masjids in America. Essentially, was the Muslim Center, which is on like 8 miles, right? And you know, my sister-in-law, brother, they regularly go to this, you know, this center. They know quite a few people there. It's almost exclusively African American. And I got talking to them, and I said, hey, you know, how is it? This is the first Trump presidency, right? I said, how is it for you guys? Are you guys afraid? What's going on? And what they said to me was, they said, look, nobody was coming here before Trump got elected. No one else is going to be coming here after Trump got elected. And what do you mean by that? He said in the 60s, 50s and 60s, we were the masjid. When the newcomers came, when the students, those young Arab, Desi students came to America to get their ta'lim, to go to their colleges, get their PhDs and whatnot, we were the masjid. They got their degrees, they got their jobs, and they moved to the suburbs. And they built their masjids in the suburbs and they never came back. America, in the Western world, is the only country where the majority of the Muslims in the country are actually from that country. You guys understand that?
Wow.
African Americans make up 1/3 of the Muslim communities here in America. They are represented in almost 0% of our suburban masjid boards. They're almost, you know, in single digits in terms of representation outside of inner cities. It was surprising to me when I moved here. You know? And when the sister's talking about, hey, we need to interact with others. We need to get to learn and get to know about, you know, other societies, other cultures. I think it starts with the African American Muslim community.
Absolutely.
America doesn't know about Islam if it's not through the African Americans. That's something we all can do. And acknowledging implicit biases that we have within ourselves is an important step. I'm not saying that we're racist. We're a little bit racist. And it's a reality. I mean, what's fair and, what's it called? Fair and lovely? Is that what it's called? That was imposed upon our communities, right? To teach us something. I know people, I've seen it with my own eyes. A mother going to her son and saying, don't drink black coffee. Put milk in it. Because that'll become your complexion. I mean, she's not racist. This is just what she's taught. This is what she's known her formative years when she was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Let's do that. Let's go out to the community. I loved it. This is my second trip to New York. My first trip to New York was almost exclusively for Malcolm X, where we hung out in Manhattan for a little bit, walked around, did kind of the walking tours, went to the Union Station and stuff like that. But we spent time in Brooklyn at his museum. I think it's in Brooklyn, right? Harlem? Brooklyn?
Manhattan.
I don't know where it is, right? It's whatever it's north of Manhattan, whatever that.
Harlem.
There you go, Harlem. But hearing that story, like think of, do you guys know the story of when he got shot? What happened? What happened when he got shot?
Just giving a speech.
He was giving a speech. How far away was was the hospital.
Oh, it wasn't far.
It was across the street.
Mm.
It was literally, you can still see, it was across the street was the hospital. And they didn't come. Right? This is the man, and I need everybody to understand this. He is the single most influential Muslim in American history. It's because of him, Malcolm X, rahimahullah, that droves of people converted to Islam. Was because of him. Where is he buried? Does anybody know? Sisters, any of you guys know where he's buried?
No.
It's a cemetery north. It's almost at the Connecticut border. We went there. We did our FITYA there. These are important things that we as a community need to know about. And share these stories and own them. These are our heroes. Right? He's right here. It's a couple hours, maybe like an hour drive, hour and a half maybe. Go, take the school, like let's make it a masjid field trip. Yeah? February's Black History Month. His birthday, I think, is in this month. Malcolm X's birthday is in this month. Make it that a hijrah. Do it. Yeah, we're gonna do it. That's an opportunity, right? To get to we're going to celebrate it. We're going to own it. Right? That's an excellent point, though, about getting to know one another. And this is going to help our own mental health, too. I mean, making those connections with one another, right? We're divided in nations and tribes, apparently.
We are actually, inshallah, going to do we're already talking to people to do a Malcolm X, or the likes, people of black history, in the black community, to do an event on Long Island, inshallah.
Amazing. Yeah. That's excellent. Yeah, absolutely. Showcase it, highlight it.
I think that's very relevant and very important, especially what's happening today. I think it's a repeat of what has happened before. And I think it's important that we regroup and learn from what they had done.
One of the funnier stories of American Muslims was a former slave who was brought from West Africa. He was a hafiz. He could read and write Arabic. And his name was Omar Saeed. A lot of people anecdotally know this story, but they don't know who he is. He's the one who was told by his slave master to write the Lord's Prayer and wrote Surah FITYA and then wrote at the bottom, and my master thinks this is the Lord's Prayer. If you don't know what that is, it's the prayer Christians read in the Bible. And no one knew what this meant until African American Muslims came and recognized this guy trolled everyone for 200 years.
Yeah, it's a famous story. There's so many tremendous stories I remember reading something about, they were leaving gaps in the floorboards so that they could breathe and communicate with one another. Like, so that when they were trapped under the slave owners all thought these guys were like unparted. They didn't know what they were doing. So they knew exactly what they were doing. And they've written on so many of those under those floors, and it's still there today. These etchings that are in Arabic that have like all this Quranic writing. There's a convert that came to Canada. Okay, he's there now. He's an imam. He's Jamaican by heritage, and his family's here in New York. And one of the things his grandmother, who's not Muslim, she said, when he became Muslim, she said to him, "You realize that Islam is part of the African American cultural experience." He's like, "What do you mean?" He said, "There's people in Harlem, like that's where the family is, where two non-Muslims may even be walking beside, like towards each other, like, yo, assalamu alaikum, man, what's up?" It's just part of the culture. How many times do we see and get excited about reading a Muslim name on maybe like a football player or something? And we're like, oh, he's Muslim. No, he's not Muslim. Rashid. Right? Because it's part of the culture. It's become so ingrained. Right? These are communities that if we came together, like the sister was saying, if we come together, we're going to see an impact. This is one of those things that is feared, I think, a little bit. And we've been kept separate. And we kind of were like, yeah, okay, we're happy with our little lives here. We're making decent money, we're focused on our careers, we're focused on our families, our homes, our dunya, or whatever it is. You know? Let's break those chains. We can do that. That would be a huge experience for our own mental health and how we, go forward. That was a great suggestion. Does anybody have any questions about the stuff that we did?
Well, thanks for coming out and doing the presentation. So, I think you gave a good sense of the hotline, which is kind of like a good place to triage. Like you said, you're dealing with the scattering of, you don't know what the question's going to be, and then you kind of handle it and take it from there. For the actual therapy services themselves, could you give at least for the time being, could you give a sense of if we were to recommend it for somebody, what are categories of issues that are a good match or fit for the therapist, in terms of what they handle, with background versus is there any subset of issues that you say is maybe not yet covered or would be considered an inappropriate referral or so? If you were to kind of compare and contrast.
Leave it to the psychiatrist to be like, let's talk a little clinical stuff. And well done, Marshall. So look, when we talk about therapy, this is not every therapist is the same. Having a therapist is a relationship. And they may be what you're looking for in terms of their background, but you may not connect with that therapist. And that's a reality. And you need to make a good relationship with the therapist, no matter who it is, and make sure that they're the right fit for you. Now, every therapist has their own specialties. We have a therapist in Indiana who is a specialist, one of the country's leading specialists in gambling addiction. That's what she does. She knows about anxiety, she knows about depression, but you want to talk to her about gambling addiction, that's a problem you got, she's your person. Okay? On our website, we've got 2 therapists here in New York that are certified. Each state has its own rules. We have therapists right now in 10 states, and we're, inshallah, by the end of the month, hopefully we're going to have 4 more states, inshallah. Each one of them has their own specialties. I just have to look up what the specialty is for. So one of the ones that is something that we don't have yet is adolescence. And that is an important aspect, and it's such an important area, and we just don't have the experts in that area for working with adolescents. But if I tell you, play therapy, for instance, the New Jersey therapist that we have, she's also licensed here in New York. She does play therapy, and she's brilliant at it. She's a professor at Columbia, but she's also a therapist. In terms of what we've got here, look it up. Therapy. So our 2 therapists, one is Maha Akhtar. Does anybody know Maha? Maha Akhtar, do you know her? No? She was just with me at the hillside. She just did the presentation there. Personal interests, educational background, LCSW, philosophy, commitment, and connection. She specializes in burnout, work-life balance, relationship stress, chronic illness, family tension, anxiety, panic, depression, and insomnia. So you see, there's different specialties that each therapist will have. If I go over to Sarah Zaidi. Does anybody know Sarah Zaidi? She's licensed in New Jersey and New York. Her specialization is cultural integration. So she's South Asian, Muslim immigrant, specializes in helping people navigate the complexities of cultural values. She specializes, she's play therapy. She actually does children and teens. So she's good with adolescents. And she has a family-centered approach. So, family relationships. So again, if addictions is the problem, she's not your perfect match. But if it's adolescents, and this is the area that you want to work with, she would be a good fit. So those are the two. So that was a great question about the kinds of fits that we have right now here in New York. And inshallah, we are looking for more. And if you'd like to join therapy, no? Okay. Well, it's out there. If you have friends, let me know. Because we need to expand it. We absolutely need to expand here in New York. There is a great demand here. And inshallah, we're hopeful that we can meet that demand. Inshallah.
Jazakallah khair.
Yeah. Does anybody have any other questions?
Yeah, you mentioned that NASEEHA gets followers from Connecticut and whatnot.